Okay, let's welcome Clifton Harness. Clifton is the founder and CEO of TestFit. Clifton, thanks for joining us. You described TestFit as a software tool that is a building configurator.
Mm-hmm.
Can you explain what you mean by that? What is TestFit exactly?
Configurators are not uncommon today. They're used, like if you go to Apple and you're trying to figure out what kind of phone you want, you can add the little options. I want 16 gigabytes of memory. I want the iPhone 5, with this color.
Mm-hmm.
So people are using configurators all the time. They just don't really know it. Another thing is like Chipotle order. If I'm going to do my, Uber Eats and get Chipotle delivered, I'm configuring my meal. I'm just saying these are the options that I want in it. This is what I don't want in it. I want this much of it. So people are used to operating with configurators all the time. It's just they probably don't really know it.
Mm-hmm.
And TestFit is, in my opinion, the first real configurator that AEC has seen. And I give you an example of what I'm talking about. So I'll share my screen. So I'll go to, we're based in Dallas, Texas. So I'll go to Dallas. And all you have to do in TestFit is to get started is search a location and define, what your site is. And once that's defined, it will start to generate a building. And then the configurator bit is, how wide do you want your parking stalls to be? So I can make them wider. I can make them narrower. I can make them deeper or shallower. And so for the finance industry, they use Excel, right? Excel's pretty, what you see is what you get. You plug in a number, you plug in a calculation, and it outputs. So TestFit is Excel for buildings. You type in a number, it outputs exactly what, you just plugged in. It doesn't do, 15 bajillion iterations. It's just displaying the first possible thing that fits the user's criteria.
Mm-hmm.
And it's not just for parking. I can change it to, I can add, a bunch of building in here. So we add some building, we got a little 5-level deal. And I can say, in this building, it needs to be 6 levels tall. It needs to be taller. At some point, it's trying to achieve a parking ratio. So it's removing building and adding parking back in. At least this particular algorithm is.
Mm-hmm.
We've got, 10 or 15 of them that users can use now. If you want the corridor width to be narrower, just set it to be narrower. And these are all changes that like you could make, and architects do make them all the time just with drafting, but it takes a long time. It's not like trace paper is not a dynamic modeling environment. So you might put a lot of effort into it and not get much out. So we're a building configurator. We will be focused on feasibility studies for the time being. And that's because of the level of detail that's required to do feasibility studies, much less than generating like a construction document set. But the long-term vision of our configurator technology is to start to include things like structural, mechanical, electrical, plumbing constraints, in addition to the architectural. And then eventually, if you give me enough time at the helm of this company, you'll be able to configure, with a high level of detail, almost any building type. And so that's the dream,
So it's almost like a BIM, Revit BIM on the fly in a sense. Like,
yeah,
you can't really do this with a BIM tool like a Revit or a Graphisoft. It would take you much longer, right?
right. So these tools, what they do is they create parametric components within the modeling environment, and we're saying no. Buildings require parametric buildings from 10,000 feet.
Mm-hmm.
So like a family editor in Revit's got elements that are wall based. What we build is buildings that are site based, or buildings that are road based, or roads that are site based, or roads that are building based.
Mm-hmm.
So it's sort of taking BIM to a completely different level, demanding more out of software than what we do currently. I mean, the amount of times that we've made sales just because TestFit tabulates everything instantaneously and people don't have to count or calculate areas manually. It's done all, on the fly and instantaneously.
Can you take me through an example? It doesn't have to be a specific example, but an application where, a real estate developer, let's say it's a design architecture firm, where they use TestFit at that feasibility stage. From my understanding, a lot of feasibility studies kind of go nowhere. You see if it pencils out. If it doesn't, you move on. Maybe the project just won't work and you kind of go back to the drawing board. Can you kind of talk through how TestFit streamlines that process and helps these firms out as far
as? Sure. So in our tool, we have a schemes option where you can generate lots of different schemes. And with our development and architecture customers, when they're looking at feasibility studies, the top question that they need to answer is, what type of building is this going to be? And so if the building is going to be multifamily, then underneath multifamily, there's a slew of morphologies, types of forms that buildings take. And it could be that they want to run it, as a real popular Texas typology is a wrap. And so what I can do is I can just click the wrap button, and it generates a wrap. It's a really terrible wrap. There's a better one. It generates a wrap. And so right now I can tell that this site has 145 units in a wrap configuration. I'm way overparked. I have way too much parking. Okay, so what's a different typology I can use outside of a wrap? Well, we have a podium configuration. We call it podium fill, where it's just going to fill the whole site with building. And this is quite a bit better in terms of the unit count and the parking ratio. Mm-hmm. So what they're doing is, because land has different shapes and constraints happen in the real world, like a parking stall has a specific size. TestFit generates stuff with all of those constraints in mind. Mm-hmm. And you're comparing, do I want to do a structured parking solution or a surface parking solution, or am I going to go 7 levels or 5 levels? And very quickly you can see just the permutations and the combinations of ways of solving buildings is fairly complicated and complex. And what we've done is just given people a way to generate just simple building boxes with, all of their parameters embedded, and it operates in real time. You can change any constraint in TestFit in real time and it'll update, which is fairly uncommon for generative design tools, right?
Yeah, because we've obviously written about some of these tools that, as you mentioned, will kick out 5,000 possible optimized solutions, and here's the top 6. This isn't TestFit, right? TestFit's
they're often not even optimized, David. They're often not even optimized. They're just different solutions. And so what they do is you throw the stuff at the wall and see what sticks, right? And then you filter down to a solution. And in reality, a well-seasoned architect can see right through that whole ruse, knows what in their head, knows what they need, and all they need is a software tool to get what's in their head out onto paper faster. We've had incredible success with architects that can't even use CAD, but they can use TestFit. It's so easy to use. Just click a button. Mm-hmm.
So it kind of combines the power of a piece of software and generative design, real-time generative design, with the experience and intuition that a real estate developer, an architect, a contractor brings to the table, right? So they could on the fly say, okay, we could do it this way. Okay, parking, let's adjust that. We could adjust the actual footprint of the building, and that's it. They could walk through different sort of iterations in real time.
And what you're talking about is co-creation. It's, how can you pair professional and very intelligent people? Like, our customers are smart, really good people. And our goal isn't to like consume their job and replace it with a tool, right? Our opportunity is to give them like an exoskeleton, something that makes them far more lethal at what they do. And that's what we've been doing for 3.5 years, or almost 4 years, that I've been working on TestFit, is just co-creation, giving architects, developers, or contractors more powerful tools that they can get their jobs done more effectively. And this is a huge waste on the industry, is feasibility studies. I mean, nobody's earning money on it, but you have to do it. You have to do it in order to get deals together.
Mm-hmm. Then Clifton, you mentioned, 3.5 years, about 140, 150 different regular clients. What are a few pieces of feedback that they've given your firm? Obviously, you mentioned getting more detailed with the models themselves, moving in that direction. Anything else? Because I know there's probably a feedback loop with your clients.
Yeah.
What are you hearing from the designers and real estate developers on how you can improve TestFit moving forward?
Oh, what are we not hearing? Really, it's centered around form for architects. They want to be able to control more of the form. It's a constrained environment, so it's going to constrain you. And early on, what we did was release this manual tool where users can remove bits and pieces of the building, and they can start to sort of draft in and sketch in what they want. So we've done this in 2D. Later this year, we'll be releasing a 3-dimensional feature that enables sort of co-creation in 3 dimensions. That's been probably the biggest piece of feedback from the architecture community. The development community, they want less features. They want less buttons.
Yeah.
They want a better answer, like right from the get-go. And you kind of hear their feedback and you think, okay, well, if I do that, I'm gonna have to start competing with my architects, and that's not really what we want. So, when you're building automation tools, you've got to be in tune with your customers, and I don't want to compete with my architects because I really love having our architects on. Like 60% of our customers are architects.
Mm-hmm.
They're way better at using technology, especially complicated technology. Like, one of the positives of Revit, having been, have so many different workarounds to make it do what people need to make it do, is that architects are really good at software. They're good at understanding the constraints of their software.
Mm-hmm.
And so configurator technology, like when you're combining things like mechanical, electrical, plumbing, we have finance modules in here. We've got construction, hard costing in here. Architects are really well suited to understanding this whole thing. Like, they're really good generalists. And I there's some developers that we work with that used to be architects, and, they are on a plane of their own because they're thinking through finance, they're thinking through deal structure, stuff that architects typically don't have to deal with. And I applaud those guys. But eventually we will get to a place where all of, even finance itself is going to be modeled in TestFit. And that'll give the architects a tool that, to see why a project isn't profitable or, isn't making as much money as maybe they thought it would be. So at the same time, we're democratizing some of the design tools to the development community. The architecture community is starting to see into how development deals are put together.
Mm-hmm. And then we know multifamily is a sweet spot. Are there any other building types that work well? I would imagine stuff that is, repeatable boxes, like a hotel. I mean, does it have to be a repeatable type structure, or can it be a healthcare campus, or,
Yeah, great question. So we released hotels earlier this year. Sorry, it's called Keys. There you go. There's a hotel deal. And right in the middle of COVID. So, hotels are at like 10% occupancy. Like, to much fanfare, we released hotels to nobody, right? We also have a modular tool that basically forces the building to be placed in volumetric. It's more for volumetric modular, and that's been really great. They are more kit aparts based type buildings, the modular buildings, which makes it really easy for us to do.
Mm-hmm.
And then earlier this year, we released last year. That's 2021. We released core-based buildings, which is more commercial centric, but getting the automation in for allocating bathrooms, staircases that dynamically size based off of floor loads. All of that technology we needed to build to then support the more complicated typologies like healthcare. So we're slowly making our way into more and more building types, but our bread and butter is multifamily, and it's one of the only functioning markets during COVID. So we've been growing like crazy, while mitigating our multifamily risk, if you will, by building out some more technology.
Yeah, we just saw that multifamily is up 14% year over year construction spending. Value put in place. So I mean, it's a good market to be in right now, Clifton. So, well, it's an amazing tool, Clifton. I want to thank you for your time. Last question. How do people, is this a subscription deal? Is it a one-on-one sort of consulting fee? How does it work as far as if our viewers want to utilize TestFit on a project?
Yeah, it depends on what kind of, what they're trying to do, right? If it's a student that just wants to check out the, most cutting edge algorithms, we typically will give students a free license. If it's a solo practitioner, it's really hard for them to afford our $500 a month fee. So we typically try to work with them, can they turn it on and off when they need it, that kind of thing. And then for the big firms, we sell, one license for about $500, but then three licenses is basically like $1,000. So you get kind of a really good, taper off with the number of users. And then, the biggest firm, I didn't know this before, like starting TestFit, but when you're selling software to big firms, like they expect to be, here's your custom quote and here's the roadmap for implementation. So that part of our business, the more enterprise part of our business is new, and we're growing it.
Yeah, kind of the onboarding and support side, right?
Yeah. Because we're just cranking out software and selling it to whoever would buy it for 2.5 years, and then when we realized people were like, this is a core part of their business, it's like, okay, we should probably be very serious about onboarding and support and making sure everything works.
Well, the good news is firms of all sizes are involved with feasibility studies, so you don't have to go after the enterprise. It does pay off because you get the volume, but and notoriety, but there's plenty of client base opportunities for you.
Yeah. It's like the US AECO market is one of the most fragmented markets on the planet. So, there's hundreds of accounts out there. We just got to go find them.
Yep. Love it. Well, Clifton, thanks again for your time. I really appreciate it. Thanks for the demo, and I'm sure we'll be in touch. I'd love to sit down and talk with you and one of your architect clients and go through a project. That'd be fun.
Absolutely, yeah. They're way better at using the software than I am. I'm a bean counter now, which kind of sucks, but
I know. I hear it. You're a business guy at this point, so
yeah.
But congrats on the tool. It's very neat, and it's going to help out AEC firms and owners and developers. So good luck to you, and we'll be in touch.
Thanks, David. Appreciate it.